colored pens. Let's see how we did with the last lesson. What must y be in this point so that the slope between these 2 points is 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll start with X-Dole, Edgar, John, Valerie. What'd you get? 4. I'm sorry? -4, so we have a slight disagreement. It does come out to 4. The rate of change between these 2 points, what do you get? Start with Matthew, Kadir, and then we'll go to Shan.
6,000.
Okay.
X equals 1 hour and y equals 6 hours.
Okay. Okay. The correct answer is $6 per hour. So let's survey first. Give me a thumbs up if you got number 1 correct. Put your thumbs down. So we have a lot of people who need help with number 1. As far as I can tell, it's about 9 people. So, X-Dole, what did you do to try and solve number 1?
I did 2 equals 8 minus y over 5 minus 3.
2 equals 8 minus y over 5 minus 3. Wow, he set that up perfectly and he described it perfectly. He got this set up because I know that he did this as well. So he could keep himself organized. And now, solve the equation. There's a number of different ways you could do it. First of all, you should immediately know that 5 minus 3 is 2. So you can just do mental math here and replace that with a 2. Now you have a few choices. You can either solve it like a proportion, or you can just get rid of the 2. There's a few different ways to do it. What did you do, X-Dole, since you're on a roll today?
Multiply 2 by both sides.
Outstanding. Multiply both sides by 2. That's what will get rid of that. Then you have to multiply it on this side, and you end up with 4 equals 8 minus y. You don't even have to solve that. 8 minus what number equals 4? The answer is 4. Comments or questions on that? Comments, questions? Okay, who's going to be brave and tell us where you went wrong? Where'd you go wrong? Because there's about 11 people in the room who got it wrong. We'll start with Valerie and then Alexandra. This right here? Okay. So, oh, I see. So you had plus y? Okay. Do you understand why it's minus? Why is it minus? Okay. It's supposed to be y instead of negative y. Okay, I understand what you're saying. I mean, the real reason is the formula. The formula is m equals y2 minus y1. And like you said, that's just a positive y right there. So regular, just positive y goes right there. Over x2 minus x1. Okay, so it's because of the formula. Okay, very good. Thank you for helping us, because I'm sure someone else made the same mistake. Alexandra, what was your issue that you discovered?
I just divided wrong.
Okay, divided what wrong?
Because I did negative 4 divided by 1 after 1.
Okay, Why did you have to divide anyway?
Because I ended up getting negative y equals negative 4.
Oh. So you actually, from here, you solved the equation.
Yeah.
So you did that, I see. So you went -8, -8, or -8. You canceled it out, and you got -4 equals -y. So I'm sorry. So Valerie, I think I misunderstood you. Was this what you were talking about? And I thought you were talking about that there. So I apologize. I misunderstood you. So yeah. So all this means is flip it like a pancake. Flip it, flip it. Y equals 4. Okay? And I understand you said you divided, you accidentally put 1. Good. Good. Any other comments or questions on number 1? Okay, give me a thumbs up if you got number 2 correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Good. Put your thumbs down. Now, I understand that number 2 is worded a little bit differently, but number 2 is easier than number 1. Because it's just find the slope. So number 2, you've got x1, y1, x2, y2. Find the slope. I know it says find the rate of change, and it's all this fancy language. And then I know it says x in hours and y in dollars, and some of you are saying, well, I don't know what he's talking about. Well, this means 4 hours, $24, 20 hours, $120. That's all it means. So, plug in the information. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You get m equals 96 over 16. But it says x is in hours, y is in dollars. The x's are on the bottom. So that's hours. And the y is on top, so that's $96 in 16 hours. Now put that in simplest form. It's both divisible, so you get, they're both divisible by 16, you get $6 per hour. Comments, questions on how we did that? Yes?
What I did with mine, I did it mentally, but I looked at the x values and the y values,
Mm-hmm.
and then I thought that if you were to multiply them both by 6, it would come out to the number of dollars, and then I got $6 an
Oh, so you multiplied this number by 6 and you got that, and you multiply that number by 6 and you got that, and so you figured that the rate of change was 6? Okay. I see why you did that. I don't know if that will work every time. Did you do the same thing on the questions on the homework?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Okay, so we'll see if you got them right. Very good. And you did get them right when you graded the homework the other day? Okay, good. Good. Michaela. Any comments or questions on either of these? Okay. Today's lesson revolves around the concept of slope-intercept form, which also will turn out to be the third method for graphing an equation. I want to, for a moment, emphasize this word form. A lot of students over my years of experience have gotten confused about the word form. I'm not actually teaching you anything new. I'm showing you a different way to represent the same thing you've learned already. It turns out that this form has some powers. And so it's beneficial to be able to put an equation into this form. But we're still talking about linear equations. We're still talking about lines. We're still talking about graphs. We're still talking about everything we've been talking about. All I'm introducing is a way of writing it. So slope-intercept form is when you write a linear equation, y equals mx plus b. You already have this memorized, so that's no struggle for you to know that form. This also looks like something you've been learning since the end of chapter 3. Up until today, what was this form called? Up until today, what was it called? Nathaniel? It was called function form. Now I'm giving it a new name. Same exact thing, new name. But now we can pick out pieces of information that are incredibly useful. The m is the slope of the line, and once we have an equation in slope-intercept form, the slope is right there. The b is the y-intercept. We've talked about intercepts. Well, now we have a really easy way to find it. Once we have it in slope-intercept form, those two pieces of information pop out. And the great thing is that when those two pieces of information pop out, we can easily draw a graph. We have another goal today, which is to understand the concept of parallel lines. Parallel lines have the same slope. Now, as always, I do hope that a lot of my students can instinctively understand how this form works and what you can do with it. But I don't want to rely on all of my students having those instincts already. So I always give you a set of steps to be successful. So, graphing with slope-intercept form, this is, again, the third method. Step 1 is going to be the same as something you've done before. Write the equation in slope-intercept form. Nathaniel already reminded us that this used to be called function form. Well, you've done that many, many, many times at this point. Write the equation in function form or slope-intercept form. Step 2, find the slope and the y-intercept. All you have to do is look. Step 3, plot the y-intercept. Because what we need is a point. We need a starting point, and the starting point will be our y-intercept. Then we draw what is called the slope triangle to locate a second point. Once we have 2 points, draw a line through the 2 points. Today, we're going to start by mastering these 2 steps. Once we mastered steps 1 and 2, then we will introduce steps 3 and 4. Does anyone have any questions on the wording or the steps or the order or anything at all? You'll know when we see it. That's a very good question. The triangle. What am I talking about? A triangle. I have to draw triangles? You'll understand when you see it. Before I continue, I want to make sure that you are making connections. So let's see who remembers what they're supposed to know. What was the first method that I taught? for graphing.
Get the equation in function form. Insert four numbers for the for x and solve the equation to get the solutions for y.
Good. Do you remember what the name of the method was called? Yeah, you described it perfectly, and you clearly know exactly what to do. That's fantastic. That was called using a table of values, and he just described it. And what was the first step that he described? Edgar? Put it in function form. What's the first step we're doing today? Just put it in function form, but now it's called slope-intercept form. So you actually already learned step one a long time ago, but we want to make sure we're understanding and we want to refresh that skill. Okay? So, as I said, we're going to perfect steps 1 and 2 first. Write each equation in slope-intercept form, and then identify the slope and the y-intercept. So, again, this is now, I think, my 4th or 5th time saying it. We want to write it in function form. So I truly believe at this point you should feel like you're this level with putting things in function form. I know there's some of you who are still struggling with it. There was a couple of students who came yesterday during care to get help, and that was great. So function form and now slope-intercept form means get the y by itself. So I should be looking on the left-hand side, and I need to get rid of everything except for the y. What has to disappear first? Shannon? Outstanding. How do we get rid of it? Perfectly stated. Add 4x to both sides. And now you will understand why I have been asking you to put the x term first. This cancels out. Here's a danger zone right here. That's a negative 2y equals, and now you put this term first, 4x minus 12. I've been asking you for about 2 weeks already to try and make sure you put this variable term first. Now you know why. What's the second step in getting it in slope-intercept form? Extol?
All of them by -2.
I love the way you said that. That was fantastic. Divide all of them by -2, and now you're going to understand why I made you do this instead of one line going across. Make sure you watch your positives and negatives. This is -2 divided by -2. That's y equals. This is 4 divided by -2. What do we get as a result of that? Funk? -2x. Very good. And then now you should see that this is a -12 divided by a -2. What do we get as a result of that, Stephanie? Very good. So now we have the y by itself. We have achieved our goal of getting it in slope-intercept form. Now I'm asking you to identify the slope. So m equals, what is the slope? Kadir? Okay, so we're going to write -2, but it's actually a little bit more than that. What is it really? Alexandra?
-2.
Very good. And that's actually really important for today. -2 over 1. Because this is the rise and this is the run. So we need both numbers. Now I know Kadir knew that it was over 1, but he didn't realize, because we just started today, that we need both numbers because that's the rise and that's the run. Now I need the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? John? I'm sorry? What? I just didn't hear you. 1 over 1, where'd you get that? You're looking in front of the y right here and you're saying there's a 1 there? Okay, but that's not the y-intercept. The y-intercept is in a different location. You're looking at the letter y, but I'm asking for the y-intercept. Valerie? It's 6. It's 6 because when you have an equation in slope-intercept form, the number in front of the x is the slope, and this number here is the y-intercept. Okay? So I understand why you said that, John, but do you see it now? Good. Does anyone have any questions on how we did this? No questions. Okay, part B. This is actually here just to illustrate one small little point. In fact, the other examples are all really just to illustrate small little details. So before we do this, I want to illustrate an idea over here. I don't need you to write it down, I just want you to watch. 20 minus 10 divided by 2. Could someone tell me what that value is? What is that value? Michaela? How'd you do it?
20
Which is?
10.
And then you divide it by 2. That's what you're supposed to do, right? What about this? Oop. What's the value of that expression? Some of you had your hands up before I even finished. I think some of you already figured out what I'm doing. Janae? 5. How'd you do it? Very good. So could someone tell us what's the difference between these two expressions? They both have the same value, so what's the difference between them? Dalton? I love the way you said that. One is basically combined into one fraction and the other one is separate. But they both come out to the same value. So how does that apply to this? What do you think we're going to do with the way this is set up? Caleb? Yeah. Anytime you have an expression on top with one term on the bottom, it really means this part of the expression divided by this and this divided by this. That's what I just illustrated right here. This minus this divided by this really means this divided by this and this divided by this. Okay? So we can apply that rule, that concept, to help us with algebra. So all we're going to do is rewrite this as y equals. Now it's going to be 3x over the 8 minus 7 over the 8. I would probably write it, and you don't have to write it twice, but I would probably write it a little bit better. This is really y equals 3/8 x, putting the fraction in front of the x, minus 7/8. So there was really no work. You just had to think about it a little bit. What's the slope of this equation? Matthew? 3/8. Rise over run. And what is the y-intercept of this? Only 3-4 people can pick it out. Davis?
7/8.
It's not 7/8. Shannon? It is negative 7/8, and that's the kind of detail, Davis, that you have to pay extremely close attention to. Because one, you will put the point under the bottom half of the graph, and the other one you would put on the top part of the graph, and they're totally different. Can't afford to make a mistake like that, okay? So we now have slope-intercept form with the pieces of information. Does anyone have any questions? Part C. Again, here to illustrate a minor point. What observation can you make about part C? Anything at all? Stephanie and then Sebastian? Okay. Okay, so what do you think we should do, Sebastian? You said that perfectly. Just switch it around. Move this over here. So this is really y equals, but here's the danger zone. Students make the mistake of not moving the negative sign with the 2. It's negative 2x, so what's the sign on the 5? Go ahead, Sebastian, you're on a roll. It's plus 5. So you have to move things correctly. You can't just move them and ignore the sign. And so now we have slope-intercept form, and we can easily pick out the slope and the y-intercept. What is the slope in this case, Davis?
Negative 2 over 1.
Very good. Negative 2 over 1. We need both numbers. What's the y-intercept? John? Positive 5. Very good, John. Now, the y-intercept doesn't need the 1. I know why he's saying that, because he's trying to do things right. But the y-intercept, you guys are misinterpreting things. The y-intercept is a point on the graph. The slope is something different. You'll understand more when we do it. Okay? Part D is just to illustrate that it doesn't matter if there's decimals or whole numbers, you still can put it in slope-intercept form. We don't even need to do part D. It's just here to show you that it's the same process. We still need to get y by itself. Also, just because there's a 0 here doesn't mean there's anything different going on. So, you know what? Let's do one part of it. What's the first step in getting in slope-intercept form? What's the first step? Chris?
Add 4.41 to both sides.
You could do that. You could do that, and that would get the y over here. But notice that slope-intercept form y is always on the left, and now you'd be putting the y over on the right. So what could we do instead of that? Kadir?
Subtract 2.2x on both sides.
Yep. This will disappear. This is a negative 4.4y equals negative 2.2x. So a lot of you guys get confused with the 0. Like, oh my god, there's a 0. What do I do? It's a number. You treat it just like a number. Okay? Any questions? All right, so let's see how we do on our own. Checkpoint number 1. Gave you a tough one on purpose. Got 2 minutes. slope-intercept form first. We'll start with Alexandra, Davis, and then Danielle.
Y equals X minus
Okay?
Y equals X minus 6 over 4.
Okay? Okay? So I was looking for y equals x minus 1 1/2, or I will accept y equals x minus 3 over 2. Y equals x minus 6 over 4, unfortunately, is not okay because 6 over 4 is not in simplest form. And that's mental math that you should do quickly. So what is the slope? What's the slope, Michaela? The slope is 1. Actually, the best thing, and I should have written it differently, it's really 1 over 1. So you should have written 1 over 1. And what is the y-intercept? Dalton?
Negative 3 over 2 is negative 1.
Yeah. Now, let me clarify one thing. This should be 1 over 1. Slope. See, John was trying to do something before. John started making everything to a fraction because I said that for the slope we needed this 1. Because slope is a special type of number. Slope has special meaning. Rise over run. The y-intercept is not special like that. The y-intercept is the location on the graph. There's negative, I didn't do a very good job of that. There's negative 1, there's negative 2, negative 1 1/2 is right there. So this is a location on a graph. These, we need the two numbers because they have special meaning. So the y-intercept can be in fraction form or mixed number form. I think mixed number form is easier because trying to figure out where negative 3/2 is hard. Seeing it like negative 1 1/2 is much easier to understand. Yes?
For B, when we get right to put it into decimal form,
B can be a decimal, but what's my rule about decimals?
make sure to do it in decimals.
Well, there's actually a more specific rule, Danielle. If the original question has decimals, then use decimals. Okay? Good. So now let's put this all together and actually learn to graph with it. So I actually now have 3 methods for graphing. I can make a table of I can put it in function form and make a table of values and then plot the values. I can find the x-intercept and the y-intercept and draw the graph. Or now I can use slope-intercept form. After today, you will get to decide which of the 3 methods is easiest for each question. And it's up to you to decide which one to use. Step 1, we are to put the equation in slope-intercept form. So, I need negative 2x plus y equals 3 put into slope-intercept form. What's the first thing I'm going to do? Valerie? You said that perfectly. Add 2x to both sides. This will disappear, and I get y equals 2x plus 3. What's the next step in getting it in slope-intercept form? Nathaniel?
Nothing.
Good. That was said perfectly. Nothing. It's in slope-intercept form already. Step 2. Identify the slope and the y-intercept. What's the slope? What's the slope? Sebastian in the back, what do you think the slope is? Very good. 2 over 1. Outstanding. What's the y-intercept? What's the y-intercept, Fung? 3. Any questions about how we did that? Now we're ready to graph. This is our starting point. and then we use the slope. We start here. So everyone draw a coordinate grid going about 8 squares in each direction. So, the B is our starting point. That is the y-intercept. It's the location on the y-axis that we're going to put a dot. So now we go 1, 2, 3. That is our starting point. Now, here's where the triangle comes into play. Davis asked it before, what's this triangle you're talking about? And he was the only one brave enough to ask. Well, this is rise, this is run. That means this is up and down, this is left and right. So what we do is we start here and we're going to rise 2. So I'm going to draw a little line, up 2. We're going to run 1, which means we're going to go in the positive direction, right there. That is going to be our next point on the line. So now we put a dot right here. You really only need 2 dots to draw a line, but I want to make sure I draw a nice accurate line. So I'll do the slope again. Rise 2 from here. Run 1. That's the next dot, or the next point on the line. And it will continue in that pattern. Now I'm ready to connect the dots and draw the graph. Remember to make sure your graph goes all the way through the grid and put arrows on either end. And now we have graphed an equation. Yes, John?
I did this last year, and I would think this one would be the easiest for me.
Which one is the easiest?
Random one. And then we
I'm confused. You're saying this is not the easiest one, what?
no, I think this one is easier.
Oh, this one is easier than the other ones. Yeah, it's supposed to be. I think at this point you should realize that the table of values is probably the longest process. Intercepts is pretty easy, and slope-intercept form is pretty easy. Sometimes one will be better than the other. Does anyone have any questions on what we did? All right, so now you try it on your own. Checkpoint number 2. Graph the whole thing. Let me put another minute on the clock, it's all right. All right. Colored pens up. Can't really call on volunteers to describe a graph, so let's just see what the graph is supposed to look like. That is what your graph is supposed to look like. Slope-intercept form was y equals negative x minus 6. The slope was negative 1 over 1. The y-intercept was negative 6. So even though I think a lot of us may feel confident, John even shared that he felt like this was the easiest way to graph, I'm guessing that some of us got this question wrong. Not everybody, but some of us did. Because of one tiny little detail. What was the tiny little detail that threw off everybody? Daniela? Yeah. When you solve it, you get negative y equals x plus 6, and some of you just left it like that. You cannot have a negative y. So you have to flip it like a pancake, which means you flip it, flip it, flip it. You flip everything. So the result is y equals negative x minus 6. Anyone have any questions about that? So the slope triangle looks like this. We go down 1, to negative 1, down 1, over 1. Down 1, over 1. Any comments or questions? Michaela?
Is it okay if you put all the points on there?
Yep. Good. So now, the last goal is to decide, or to be able to figure out if lines are parallel. First of all, you should already know the concept of parallel lines. Parallel lines means you have two lines that will never ever cross. Could look like that, could look like this, or it could look like this. But what will that look like as in the equation? So what do we know about each of these pairs of parallel lines? They all have, each pair has the same what? Edgar? Same slope. So if I don't have a picture and I just have equations, then I can figure out if they're parallel by looking at their slope. So I need to find the slope. So we're going to set up equation A, we're going to do right here. Equation B, we're going to do right here. And equation C, we're going to do right here. And then we're going to compare their slopes. To find their slope, we need it in slope-intercept form. So 3y equals negative 9x minus 5. What do I need to do to get that into slope-intercept form? Got 4 people who know what to do. Some people are just doing it already. That's fine. Alexandra?
5, 3, 5.
No, you said it right. Divide each side by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. That will cancel out, and we get y equals. What will this become? Stephanie? Negative 3x minus 5/3 or minus 1 2/3. But we don't really care about that. What we wanted was this piece of information right here. Line B. 2y minus 6x equals negative 5. What do we need to do to get that into slope-intercept form? Sebastian?
Add 6x to both sides.
Very good. Add 6x to both sides. This will disappear. 2y equals 6x minus 5. What else? Janae? Well, what operation is... I'm sorry? Divide. Very good. Divide everything by 2. This will cancel, and we get y equals 3x minus 5 halves. But we really wanted this piece of information. So, we can already make a statement about A and B. You can either say A and B are parallel lines or A and B are not parallel. What do you think? Raise your hand and let's see what you figured out. What do you think, Dalton? They're parallel? How do you know?
Because 3, they both have 3. One is just negative and one is just positive.
Oh, okay. So you think because they have the same number that they're parallel? What do you think, Michaela?
They're not parallel.
They're not parallel. Well, he thinks they are.
One's negative.
Well, he said that one's negative, one's positive, but he said that that doesn't matter. What do you think? So you think it does? Okay. Kayla? You think they're parallel? Okay. Edgar? Why not?
Because on the graph, it's rising and run, so you have to go down 3 and then and the other one you have to go.
Yeah. That was a very good explanation. These are not parallel. The negative makes a huge difference. Absolutely makes a humongous difference. Negative 3 and a positive 3 are 2 totally different things. And what Edgar just described was spot on. This is over 1. This is over 1. This is rise over run, but that's a negative number. That means we go down 3 and over 1. This means we go up 3 and over 1. This line is going to slant like that. This line is going to slant like that. 2 totally different lines. They are not parallel. Let's look at line C and see if line C is parallel to either of these. Nathaniel, you had a comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
For negative 5 over 2, can't that be simplified to a mixed number?
Yes, in fact you should. But right now I'm just focusing on the slope, so I didn't want to waste any time with that. What about C? How do we get C into slope-intercept form to see if it's parallel? Valerie? Subtract 12x. Good. You should be seeing the same steps over and over again. We get 4y equals negative 12x plus 1. What's the next step? Davis?
Dividing everything by 4.
Very good. Divide everything by 4. And we're left with y equals negative 3x plus 1/4. But once again, I'm really focusing on this. So now someone make a statement about all of these three lines, A, B, and C. Janae, what do you think? How come? Okay, good. Anyone have a different opinion? Dalton?
Actually, well, actually, all of them have 3.
Okay, that's true. But I'm trying to decide which ones are parallel.
And C.
A and C are parallel? You don't seem too
No,
confident.
No, but they shouldn't touch.
Well, that's what parallel means, is that they won't ever touch. Okay? All right, don't worry, you'll get it. So let's see how you do on your own. Checkpoint number 3. Are these two lines parallel? Prove it. I mean, I'm looking for a yes or no answer, but you need to be able to prove it. We're going to survey. Give me a thumbs up if you think that the two lines are parallel. Everyone over here thinks they're parallel. Everyone over here thinks they're parallel. No, not everybody. Most of the people over here think they're parallel. Okay, so prove it. Well, how are they parallel? Jen?
They're both positive 2.
They're both positive 2x? What do you mean they're positive 2x?
They're not negative.
Not negative. Okay. Good, that's something. They're both positive 2x. Sebastian?
Both slopes are the same in both equations.
Yeah. So Shannon, there's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but we're not talking about the x. We're talking about the slope. The slopes are 2. You're right, they're both 2x plus something, or 2x minus something, but the slope is not x. The slope is the number. So both slopes are 2, okay? Any comments or questions? Good, you guys are doing well. Keep it up. Draw a line across your paper. Your classwork is on page 40 in the workbook. You're going to do 29, 28, 23, 20, 14, 9, and 8. number 29 is not really on page 40, it's on page 41, so it really just means within that. Okay, colored pens up. So here are the answers. Numbers 29 and 28. None of them were parallel. None of them were parallel. Number 23. I don't really care how you set it. The line on the left and the line in the middle were parallel. The other one was not. So I don't care if you said left, middle, right, or however you said it. You had to indicate somehow that this line was parallel to this one. That little mark over there on the side is not mean anything. And for 20, I mean, it was a little too easy for number 20. Number 14 matched up with graph B. Number 8, the slope was -3/2 and the y-intercept 1/2, and number 9, the slope is 1/4. I don't know why it was written like that, and the y-intercept is 5/8. It's either all right or all wrong. Don't bother giving yourself half. Comments, questions on any of these? Kadir? 23. So I feel like since I didn't do any examples of this, that this might confuse you, and yet I only had one person who asked, and that person probably got it right because they asked, well, what to do. So you were asked to determine which lines were parallel. So today we talked about slope-intercept form, but look at the information that you're given. Just because today we're talking about slope-intercept form doesn't mean you have to forget everything that you've learned in the past. What can we do with those 2 points that I just highlighted? John knows because John was smart enough to ask for some assistance. John, what can I do with those?
Y2 minus Y1.
Okay, you keep saying the formula. Just tell me what that's called. You should know what it's called. It's called the slope formula. So, x1, x1, y1, x2, y2. Calculate the slope. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Calculate the slope of that line. Do the same thing for the next line. Got 2 points, here and here. And then you've got another 2 points, here and here. When you calculate the slope, you get the same slope for this line and this one. Okay? What did you try to do? That's another. Yeah, And it is confusing. That would have been my first thought as well. Unfortunately, this point right here is not a lattice point. It's not on the grid. And that one's not on the grid, so it makes it very difficult to know exactly where to draw the lines and whatnot. So I think the best thing is to just use the formula. Okay? Any other comments or questions? Okay, draw a line across your paper. Your homework. It's page 251, numbers 4 through 36 even, and number 42. That's 18 questions. And your next assessment will be chapter 4 test in a week and a half.